Alright, a horror movie that actually made me feel something. Yeah, this one made me feel something alright. So, I just recently watched Soft and Quiet on Netflix. And if you've seen the movie, you kind of know what it's about. And if you haven't, boy, you're in for a wild ride. This is a movie about a group of Aryan women who are extremely racist. And some things happen, some things get worse, and then it gets worse. But we kick off where the one lady is a teacher, and she's at a school teaching some kids, obviously, but she's there after school, but she keeps giving dirty looks to the cleaning lady. And then we see her walk, and she walks down to some, like, bridge area, and, I don't know, she's at, like, a hut type thing, and she meets another lady, and they're all there to meet a woman named Kim, and they go inside this church, and it's a whole girls' meeting. And they have desserts, all sorts of stuff, and the lady who we've been following this whole time opens up her pie, and we get to see what kind of movie we're in for. Because it has a nice Nazi swastika right in the top of the pie. So these are a bunch of people who are racist to the biggest degree. They literally leave no race behind when they're making fun of them, talking shit about them. And in the beginning, when you're hearing them talk, you kind of get like that whole, well, we're white and now we're kind of shit on, it's not fair, blah 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 thing, like I don't get privileged. And then as the movie goes along, you're like, well, these aren't just a bunch of bickering women, they actually have some real true hate and anger in them. We follow them when they leave the meeting because the priest kicks them out of the church. And they go to Kim's store where they're going to buy a few things before they go back to the one lady's house and drink some wine. They end up going in the store, they're shopping around, and two girls come in, and they refuse to sell them any wine. Why? Because they're of Asian descent. We don't actually find out what they are, but they're calling them all sorts of racist names that I won't say on here. But they do make them buy the most expensive bottle of wine in the place before they can leave. So there's 4 women who came back from this party who are all going to go back and drink wine, and they corner these girls in the store. They end up buying the bottle of wine, which was $300 with cash, which the one person wants to know who can walk around with $300 in cash, unless they are a whore. She mentions that she might be a waitress, but that's just not believable in this girl's eyes. So they leave, and the main girl's husband comes in, and he's trying to calm her down because she's upset because supposedly one of these Asian girls turned in her brother for rape, and now he's in prison. But they get this bright idea that she's not allowed to talk to her that way, and they need to go and fuck with her. And the girl knows where they live because they went to school together, so she ends up driving them back up there, but nobody's home. So they're playing around in the house. There is a little dog in it. Spoiler alert, the dog does not die. Yes, it's not one of those bad movies, but it's still fucking horrible. So they're drinking some wine and whatnot. They break a glass, and lo and behold, the girls come home. When the girl walks in, she gets kind of nervous, like she knows somebody's there. She goes to leave, and they kidnap her, and they hold her down in a chair. They tie her up with some duct tape. And as the husband doesn't want to do any of this, because obviously this is not legal, when he goes to leave, her sister's there. So he ends up dragging her into the house. And he puts her in there, and he takes off and he leaves, because he doesn't want no part of any of this stuff. So here they're tormenting these girls as they got them duct taped up and they got a gun in their face and they're screaming and yelling at them and everything else. They decide that the one needs a little protein because she's too thin, so they start stuffing some peanuts in her mouth and pouring some alcohol down her mouth. And she ends up having an allergic reaction because she's allergic to peanuts. And she's convulsing and she's on the floor and she dies. The one girl does grab an EpiPen, but she just throws it to the side. So then they decide that they got to figure out how to clean everything up. And we follow them along in this whole thing. And the one girl says that They won't believe a girl was raped by girls. So yes, we get a nice disturbing moment of a girl raping a girl with a carrot. Not extremely graphic, but definitely done enough to where you see what's happening and it's still very, very upsetting. And then they end up smothering her and killing her. And then they have to clean up the place, and they come up with the bright idea that they're going to take them down to the lake and dump them in. So they do that. They go down to the lake, they get the bodies all wrapped up and good to go, and they rowboat them out in the middle of the lake and drop them in the water. So that's how they're going to dispose of the dead bodies, and we see the water just slowly, calmly moving, and then the one girl's head pops up, and that's how the movie ends. So you sit there for an hour and a half watching a bunch of racist women say a bunch of racist things and then torment two Asian girls to the point where they don't mean to kill them, but then they accidentally do for the one, and then the other one they make sure they do. But they didn't. And the movie just ends. So it leaves you feeling, I don't know, for me I was kind of angry, to be honest. I watch these horrible people do horrible things the entire time, and then it just ends. We don't get to see any revenge. We don't get to see anything come back. You're just stuck there sitting there watching this. It is kind of a lull in the beginning because it takes some time before it actually gets going, unless you consider all the racist talk to be something to get going, because then that'll keep you entertained and occupied. But the movie was shot as if it was done in one take, which obviously it was not one take, but they shoot it that way, so you follow this woman through this entire thing, like as she walks to this place, as they get in a car, as they drive around, as they do all the actions that they do. It's literally shot following this person through 8-10 hours of her day. And we're left with no real fun excitement of like a revenge movie that you would get where that person comes back and kills all these people. Instead, you're just left watching a movie where people kind of get viciously tormented and raped. I wouldn't call it quite torture porn because that usually has a lot of gore and stuff in it, but it definitely hits on like the disturbing rape factor, and if you have a hard time watching anything with race in it, it's gonna definitely piss you off. And they know it, and that's what they went for. I'm actually surprised that Blumhouse did a movie like this. But the posters all say that it's the most horrifying film of the year. It's not horrifying like it's a horror film, but I don't remember everything that came out last year, but I would say it's one of the more realistic, disturbing ones, because this kind of puts humans as the enemy. Humans are the bad guys, and unfortunately in the world we live in, there are people who are just like this, to this extreme racist level, that when push comes to shove, if people did something bad, they would just try to cover it up and hide it because they'd be afraid of how it would affect their lives. So you're left with that realistic feeling of shit, this could happen, and depending on who you are, maybe you like it, maybe you hate it, maybe you can't even sit through all the racist stuff to get to the point where it gets, to me, what is way more disturbing. The racist stuff is a little bit hokey in a sense, like they do a lot of it, like the swastika on the pie is like, okay, now I get what kind of movie we're in for. And then they're just bashing literally every race you can think of. It's just whites are the only ones that are important to these people's eyes. But this movie doesn't glorify white power or anything like that. It doesn't really have much of a statement to say in that sense. It's more or less just trying to bring on the truth of that there are people that are this racist in the world, and people who do things that they shouldn't do, and even though they're doing them and they might be regretting them in the process, they're still following through because they want to make sure that they don't get punished. Overall, I mean, the one shot look for the whole movie, it was neat. It was something different. The characters are utterly unlikable. There's not one thing you can like about these characters. Everything they do is kind of despicable, but that's the point of it. So I can't say the acting was bad. It was actually pretty realistic, so I found it to be very good acting in a sense because they played their parts well. It was all believable, and it really made you go like, man, I hate these fucking people. And the acting from the two Asian girls for what they had to go through, I thought was very good and very powerful. When the one girl is sitting there over top of her sister, and her sister's dead because she died from the peanut allergy, and she's crying, you feel that emotion of somebody who really did lose, their sister, their loved one. So it was very good acting on her part. The brutality of it all, yes, it doesn't go into too much like visual of what you see per se. Like, it's nothing close up, it's nothing graphic in that sense. But it's one of those movies that when you're watching it happen, it really feels like it's real and it hits with a punch. So, disturbing, I would say yes. For most people, this probably is a very disturbing movie. I didn't think it was too disturbing, but I did feel angry after watching this because it felt like I just watched four pieces of shit do whatever they wanted. And the girl does live, so yay. But what she just went through, not yay. And she doesn't even get to have her revenge. So I guess I'm kind of hoping they decide to shoot a sequel so that I can watch this girl go back and kill all these fucking people. If you like this content, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Until the next one, guys, rest in peace.